Peace. Good afternoon. So we're here in Columbus, Georgia, with Mama Imani and Mama Ife and Mama Consuelo and all them, the Growing Families program that True Living Well has partnered with down here. And we're just going to do something very basic. Basic, but so profound, so important as it relates to agriculture. As we all know by now, because y'all might think I'm a broken record, the most important factor in agriculture is the soil, right? It's all about the soil. We grow soil so that we can grow good food. We already have soil. We've inherited the earth. Some people may ask, well, how do you grow soil? We grow soil by composting. We give ourselves the opportunity to create more soil by using raw material, like what you see right here. There's all kind of greens because it's Thanksgiving, Misgiving season, right? So all kind of collard greens all over the place. And we just happen to get these, source these, and bring these down with us. But this is something you can get from your backyard, obviously, or from your kitchen. When you finish cutting up the greens and all that kind of stuff, using the stems. All kind of green material, as well as the nitrogen or the carbon, the brown material, the leaves and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to get to that in a minute. What we really want to share with you right now is the building from scratch of a compost bin, a 3-bin system that's going to help us to continue to grow compost through the winter until the spring or whatever, so that we can get it going, and so the spring garden can be popping with our own homemade compost, right? Very important to be able to be self-sufficient. And the beauty of it, and we're grateful to be able to have this demonstration, is that we can do this without spending a dime. I already had this hammer. I already had some nails. But even if we didn't have nails, we can use something else. But these pallets, these sourced from local places, all kind of pallets that would just go to waste or go in a landfill or something, all these pallets, we're going to use these pallets today to create some bins to therefore create our compost. So just getting started from scratch. Put these up one by one. And it's such a simple process. Come on closer so you can see it. It's so simple. All we doing, and this is a little leaning right there, so I'm going to put something under it to level it off. We're building these like we're building some kind of walls on a house. We'll lay them out how we're going to have them, and then put them together. Pallets, free of charge. Leaves, free of charge. Your own compost, priceless. So the trick is just to find an area where you can nail them together, where it makes sense to join them together. And it's really that simple. Some basic carpentry. And all we're trying to do is just fasten them together so they don't fall on each other. We don't have to build floor joists and all that kind of stuff. It's not anything that complicated, right? We just want them to be able to hold together so they can stand up on their own. You can let it go on. Over here, same thing. I'm going to put some more nails later, but just to get it standing on its own. Starting from scratch. So this is going to be the house where the compost grows. As you can see, there's no magic tricks. Sitting up on its own. Now this one, we're going to make nice and wide. And we'll make them a little bit smaller as we go around for the sake of space. But also, this one is going to be where the first material is put in. We'll get to that in a minute. All right. Our objective is to have 3 of these next to each other, and we might just move it over a little bit. You see. So that we can have a fresh pile, an intermediate pile, and somewhere to put our finished product. Poor Canada Lily's gonna get the boot. They'll be alright. They'll be back next year with a vengeance. Hold this up. So we're going to get to the juicy part in a minute, but this is just the basic carpentry. The purpose of this video is not to show you all that we know how to hammer a nail. This is just means to the end. What we're really getting at is what we're going to put in here. That's the important part. Again, we're just finding spots to connect this so it can stand up on this. That's all we're doing. All right. one more bin. But this is the part we want to get to. When we start adding the nitrogen and the carbon together and making the lasagna, bringing it on home. Why are we doing this? Let's talk about what are the benefits. Talk about what are the benefits of compost. Why are we composting in the first place? Well, one of the great benefits of compost is it reduces waste. This stuff is not going to the landfill. This stuff is going back to participate in a very natural process of returning to the earth. You always hear about ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And because of the context that we first heard that stuff in, we might think that that's just some like a kind of a religious statement. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Well, further study of human history shows us that most of the religious language that is evident in the scriptures, most of the religious language that, or a lot of the religious language that comes through scripture, the religious practices like tithing and all this kind of stuff, is actually agricultural language. Why? Because original religion, before, in its pure form, before it started getting corrupt and used as a tool of divisiveness and control of populations and all that, is based on nature. It's just a reflection, it's a way of understanding nature, right? So, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, everything that we're looking at, all this organic matter, if it's allowed to go through its process, will return to the earth and look like this right here. It's going to come back to soil. Because this is the matter that it all initially, if you want to really trace it back, came from in the first place, right? So that's all we're doing. Composting is just helping that process go along. Over here we have, for instance, some grass that we scraped up in order to make some of these garden beds out here in Columbus. You'll see it's starting to break down. After a while, you'll see mycelium and everything, that white stuff forming. Eventually, it's going to all look like this. Soil again, right? So that's one reason for composting, is to reduce waste. Now, we've all heard about climate change. Pretty much everybody in the world understands that climate change is real, except for people who are in real denial. And we ain't going to even call their names. Some of the famous people, some of the popular people, or the people that are in the world news today a lot, that are in that kind of denial about climate change, right? So how does compost help with climate change? We're given the carbon. Carbon is one of the main ingredients in composting. And we're giving the carbon somewhere to go. We're giving the carbon some use, reintroducing itself into an organic and beautiful process instead of wasting and going back into the atmosphere in a way that is going to speed up the depletion of the ozone layer. Right? If I can read this. Just need a little corner and crevice to attached to. These structures last for years and years and years. Just giving them a little nudge to stay together. So what we're going to end up doing is getting all this together. I don't want to waste y'all's time on the carpentry part, so this is not the carpentry class. Again, the whole point is to get these together. And these candy lilies, as y'all know, they come back in abundance, so don't feel no way. We're not negating their beauty and all of that. We're just doing something that's going to even add more beauty to the whole place and even give them something, some rich soil to turn into. Or some rich soil to grow in. So right here what you have is a 3 bin. So now what we're going to do is the important part. We have a pallet left over. Now what we're going to do is the important part. We'll come back later and straighten up that carpentry to make sure that everything is solid. Nitrogen and carbon. There are many different schools of thought about the proper proportion of nitrogen to carbon. We try to use a 1-to-1 ratio. And when I say 1-to-1, remember a couple things. The nitrogen is this stuff right here. Let's take a close look. It's coming from all this and your chicken, your veggie scraps, your kitchen scraps. Right? Then you got stuff that you can add as well, like the eggshells and everything, and some things like beer grains and all that, which contain nitrogen and carbon. Coffee grounds. But nitrogen, those of y'all who know how to cook, know that if you start with a pot full of collard greens, it's going to do what? It's going to melt down, right? So if we're coming and we're thinking about the ratio of 1-to-1, we're not meaning 1 pound of collard greens to 1 pound of leaves or 1 pound of wood chips. We're talking about eventually keeping in mind that these do shrink. We're going to need to put more of this in the offset to balance with the carbon, which is not going to shrink as much. Eventually the whole thing is going to go to 1/3 or 1/4 of what we started with. So let's just get started, and then we'll talk about it as we go. When we say a lasagna, matter of fact, let's just start with some carbon. And these are bags. You see in the back of a truck, we got a bag. Regardless of where you are, or depending on where you are, I should say, we got some vines in it too. I don't want all of that. Depending on where you are, you'll see these on the curbside. It's that time of year. It's weird that we had the first frost already, and still most of the trees in the south that I've been encountering still got green leaves on it. Now, there's a lot of leaves turning already as well, yeah, but there's a lot of green leaves, right? But this is what we do. Pick up these bags. We give it a nice base to start with. This is actually something that can be broken down as well, so it can be added. There's a list of materials you can use. What I don't want to use is stuff that has wax on it, or plastic, stuff that cannot be broken down. Newspaper can be used. Many things can be used. You can kind of look up and do your research, you know, because the internet is full of, you know, the thing about the internet is everybody can post their opinion or post something that's not necessarily factual. So do some cross-referencing, you know. If you see the common information from 3 or 4 or 5 different sources, then you can kind of go with that. And there's always differences of opinion, so you can expect that too. Carbon and nitrogen. And from now, all we're doing is making a lasagna. The more we can break this down, some people chop it up, take the time to chop it up. The smaller it is, some people even puree it. The smaller it is, the easier or the quicker it will break down. And that's what we want. But I'm just showing you how to establish it. This is something you can do in the corner of your backyard and keep it moving. That's why we're demonstrating this type of bin today. This is something that doesn't take any fancy technology. You could do it in the corner of your backyard and keep moving. We're here at a community center in Columbus, Georgia, that has opened up its space for us to grow some food because good people down here understand the necessity of us returning into the soil. I'll put about a couple more bags in here because remember this melts down and I'm looking to achieve like a 1-to-1 ratio. And this green stuff melts down quicker than the brown will. It'll melt down more rapidly and at a faster proportion, I guess, faster rate than the browns will. So there's many different things that you can do. Like I said, you can research online, research the many books out there, many successful methods, and many schools of thought, several schools of thought in terms of a good ratio. Now, in terms of the actual carbon to nitrogen ratio to make good compost, it's around 24 to 20 to 1. So I said 1-to-1, so what's the difference? Why are you confusing us? Well, we're talking about mass versus the proportion. So for instance, these leaves themselves, some people choose to just do this and let these break down, deciduous leaves, not pine, straw and everything, but deciduous leaves. These leaves themselves contain, they exist with a formula of about 24-to-1 in terms of carbon to nitrogen, right? So when these break down themselves, they'll go right, they look like some nice coffee grounds or something. They look like some Hershey's cocoa when they all broke down. You know, a lot of people just put leaves, they pile their leaves every year. There's other things like horse manure and other kind of animal manure like cow manure that have a similar formula, right? And then when you go to draw the comparison to things like, let's say, paper or sawdust. Sawdust is a good one. A lot of carbon, but not very much nitrogen, right? So our goal is to achieve a balance, which is going to help to create the proper chemistry for good soil to grow. As you can see, we're just forming layers. And every layer we form, the last part of it is going to be the carbon. Because this stuff will attract all the flies and all that. What keeps them at bay and still allows the process to happen is to have the nitrogen here. I mean, to have the carbon on top of it. Keep the flies away and all that, right? Come on in and take a look. Uh-oh. Trash. Not what we want. Rubber bands, not what we want. We want to take time to take these things out. Even though we're kind of moving rapidly, we don't want to cut corners that are going to compromise the integrity of the file. If we had coffee grounds, if we had, like you said, spent grains, if we had some eggshells, all those types of things, we would be adding that as well. Hold on, make sure we get 2 at a time. We would add that as well before we add the next layer. So we put the coffee grounds on top of this. A very good source of compost. Another thing compost does is build communities. How does composting build communities? If we believe the hype, we would think compost would chase people away because it smells real bad, right? Well, the only reason it's going to smell real bad, especially at the end of the process, is if there's too much nitrogen in there. If the proportion is off. If the balance is not correct. Other than that, when we turn it, which we're going to get to in a minute, because you want to turn this at least once a week. When we turn it, it allows for the oxygen to remain in the process. And as the oxygen remains in the process, that helps it to cook down quicker. And the whole purpose is, that's all we're doing is cooking. So we got air flow, we got heat, we got water. Those are some of the main ingredients that help this process to go. And by turning it as often as we can, once a week, is good. That's why little small things like that are very manageable. You take your pitchfork and just turn it. I don't want to turn it now because we just started, but just turn it. Let's turn it. Rotate it. Many different methods to use it. Bigger piles, people use machinery and all that. The whole point is, this right here is a step to making gold. But compost helps to build communities. How does compost help to build communities? Well, people are gratefully starting to learn or remember the importance of agriculture. And you know, everybody doesn't have the space or necessarily the time to be full-time farmers. Even though we encourage everybody, even if you live in a skyscraper. I love to talk about my auntie who lives in New York City, in Manhattan, and grows more food in her windowsill on the 8th floor when I was younger than most people grow in their backyard, right? But even if you don't have the time to do all of that, how does compost help community? So many people contribute to this process. We mentioned coffee shops. We mentioned coffee grounds. Where do we get them from? We get them from coffee shops, right? We mentioned the stuff that's in your backyard or the stuff that's in your fridge. If you're a part of a community garden or you're supporting a community garden, you may not even want to compost yourself. But now we have people at our farm, Truly Living Well in Atlanta, we have people coming and just dropping off bags. They save their bags all week and then drop them off once a week. All that's contributing to something that's making gold. So everybody has a part to play. You know, the beer, the breweries, the people who just decide that they're going to bag up their leaves, and instead of letting the people come for them once a week, that the city comes for them, they're going to shout out Ralph Kofi and say, hey, we got some leaves for you. Or shout out their gardener and say, hey, we got some leaves for you. All of that is part of just people building community. We have people now that proudly display a sign that say, well, we are helping, we participate in the compost process. We're helping to build soil just by providing our, I would keep wanting to say chicken scratch, our kitchen scratch. Don't provide no chicken scratch. If one thing you don't do, that's when that myth becomes reality. Compost is going to cause, it's going to have rodents all over the place. No. What's usually going to draw rodents is fish guts and all that kind of stuff. You know, a lot of people use fish guts in their agriculture, and it's all good because they have their benefit, but not in your compost pile with your vegetables. And this is plant-based compost. We're not composting any manure or any kind of animal products in here. Other than, like I said, maybe eggshells, you know. So there's so much room to put more in. So let's just do that first. Let's stuff it up real good before we keep on putting the layers. Because it's going to eventually shrink down. We're going to have a time-lapse video. Maybe we'll ask Mama Imani and the family to send us a picture of what this pile, without adding more, looks like in 2 weeks, even 1 week. We're feeling all of it. We see trash in here too, so we want to make sure we get the trash out. We don't want to put anything like plastic or anything in there. We need styrofoam. Yep. And this can stand to come out a little bit more. We can really make this in space. Limestone. Talk about the smell that people dread having. Lime is one good thing to help with the smell. It's like people from the Caribbean, where I come from, and other places. You have the outhouses. What we use to keep the smell down. Lime. Same thing we sprinkle on the compost pile. We already spotted some bags across the street that we're going to go catch before, because they've been put out there, so the city going to come and get them if we don't get them. And we just stack them up. And as we said, this is just one form of composting. All the limbs on the trees and the twigs and all that, those can also be composted. I would suggest you put them in their own little pile so that they can be broken down at their own rate and they won't slow down the process. It's kind of like the digestive process. You know, that's why they say you shouldn't eat melons with anything else, because melons go through your body quicker than some bread would, right? So by introducing melons with something else, now you're messing up the digestive process, and something is going to either go too fast or too slow, and it's going to cause rot in the digestive system. Think about that in the same way. Look at these leaves. Go, go, go. I don't want to stuff it down too firm and keep it loose so that it's easy to turn, but I also want to get as much as I can in there. The more we break it down, better it is. Some people have operations where they grind everything up before they put it in the pile. Browns and the greens. It just helps you to process it quicker. Doing this properly in this way, turning it once a week, we should be able to have compost in 3 months. And this winter time is a great time to get it started. So many other things are dormant. We can really focus on this. And then by the time springtime comes, late winter, early spring, we got some homemade compost ready to fertilize those tomatoes. Put a little bit more leaves in there. Some people use recipes to cook, and some people just use their feel. And I say that because it's the same thing with compost. But what you got to do is trial and error. See how it works out for you. The proof is in the pudding, right? So in this sense, the proof is in the compost, and then you see how you need to modify along the way. If the pile is too wet, that's another way to attract, not necessarily attract rodents, but that's going to make it sit longer. So we really want to emphasize that it's very important to turn as much as possible. So we're almost down to the end of it, as you can see. All those leaves. Taking all the rubber bands out, it pays to be meticulous. This don't break down into anything. We don't want this in our compost. You might be in Jamaica right now. You might be in Guyana. You might be in Kenya. You might be in Haiti. You may not have collard greens. There's something in your landscape that contains nitrogen, and in a natural form like this, in an available form that you don't have to do anything but go in the bush and source it. There's something that contains carbon. I haven't made compost in all them regions, and we're really looking forward to doing this at home in Guyana on another level. But do the research. The point is that you don't have to travel abroad outside of your locale to establish what's good for your locale. That's not how it works. That's not how the Almighty set it. That's how man in his foolishness is trying to make it in so-called globalization. It might sound good, but it ain't good at all. But the reality is we have our medicine right there on the land. And our medicine is not just the herbs and stuff we use to heal when we get sick. Our medicine is anything that helps us to establish some balance, a balanced reality, which includes composting. Wouldn't something that helps us to grow healthy soil so we can grow nutritious plants, not plants that just look good but actually have nutritional value in it? It's different to have some collard greens or something that it look nice and green, but you know a lot of vegans get sick too, because they're eating food. When you check it, trace it down to where is the food coming from, what kind of soil is it grown in. So it look nice and green, but does it contain mineral, a lot of nutrient rich soil? Is it grown in nutrient rich soil? Right, that's the question, because that's what the human body needs. The plants just need nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Everybody know that, right? NPK. But the human body needs all kinds of stuff, about 50 odd minerals and amino acids. So this is part of how we allow that to happen, because all over the world the soil has been depleted. Our mother has been raped. You know, people take and don't give from the earth. So that's why we got to do this. And that's why we would say, we would use the term medicine. It is something that helps to bring balance to a sick environment. So we're going to seal up. We don't want to keep y'all too long. We're getting to the end of the pile. And there's not much more to demonstrate at this time. But don't that look juicy? It's good. So in conclusion, we want to big up the light workers. Playing their part to bring balance situations. you got questions or suggestions, you might be watching and you're actually a compost guru or something. Maybe there's something that can improve even these basic techniques. Place them in the comment section. Check us out. Our website, trulylivingwell.com. And we're on Facebook, as you are right now, so you can click on over and like our page. I want to big up the crew from Columbus, Growing Family, Mama Imani, who is a graduate of the Growing Families program in ATL, and all the family who have decided to continue the movement. See, we all come from this agricultural heritage. A lot of us have run from it. A lot of us, you can't blame us, because all we've been taught about it is the trauma we've been through, all the drama, the pain we've been through with sharecropping and all that. And so you have to be gentle with each other, because we've been through a lot, and trauma stays in the DNA. But the other thing we have to do is be present and make sure that we don't get stuck there when we know that there's options to get out. So let's get free. And these are simple ways that we can free up ourselves. You know, is composting the answer to all the problems facing the world today? Is composting gonna solve all politics and the disease of white terror, which is misnomered white supremacy and all that? No, not composting by itself. No, absolutely not. But it's all part of the process. Cause here, one thing: no tyrant, no oppressor, no anybody. One law of nature that none of them can supersede is that two things can't exist in one space at one time. So if we're doing things consistently and on our local pockets of resistance, if you want to call it that, it creates a groundswell. The more we're doing this to celebrate and perpetuate life, the less of the other stuff can go on. That much I do know. We got one more. We got doors over there. Compost, compost, compost.
So this will become true organic soil.
Yes, ma'am. Big up my brethren. I think it's Nuri that had this bumper sticker on his trailer a long time ago. Compost, because a rind is a terrible thing to waste. Serious thing. UNCF, we're not fight anybody against going to college and the mind is a terrible thing to waste. And we want to add to it that part of the reality in this Babylon is that a lot of us have bought the lie that there's only one form of education. So come and get some earth degrees too. A rind is a terrible thing to waste. They say a rind, R-I-N-D, is a terrible thing to waste. Mama Imani asking you to put you on the spot, actually publicly, to update us with some pictures of how the process is going. Indeed. We'll put the one more thing in here. Cover this. We'll make sure all the greens are tucked in nicely. We want the carbon to create a pocket for the heat, so the heat can generate. So the formula that we're talking about is something that we've used personally and seen it work. All right. Again, I want to stress that many different ways to peel an orange. So I don't want to string the cat. That's so violent, but we're talking about many ways to string a cat. Some of the things that we become part of our vocabulary, we start repeating. I don't want to string a cat. What did a cat do to you? Many different ways to peel an orange. So trial and error is the great teacher of man, woman, and child. Experience teach wisdom. The one thing about experience is it involves effort. It involves actually doing something. Deliberate, intentional activity. So, pontificating about it, spending all our days and nights on Facebook, just talking about what we need, ain't really counting as experience in this time. Experiencing a whole lot of wasted time, that's experience. That's the experience that is. Experiencing misused divine energy. It's the divine energy. All of us have the ability, born in the image of our Creator. We can create. But we don't want to misuse that energy. And I'm on here just like y'all are, so we ain't talking about there's something wrong with social media. We're talking about how we apply our energy in everything that we do. Experience, teach wisdom. Depleted soil, come alive again. Starting with methods like this. The reason why in Hawaii they got pineapples the size of my President Ira's head, because they got volcanic soil. So fire burning, and that process is taking place on that level. I don't think we want any volcanoes erupting where we are. Mm-hmm. So
you want to put this up?
We find a different way to
Brother
create that soil.
Brother Kofi, you have a question in the comments. Will you be adding lime or any other compounds and such?
Yeah, lime would definitely be great to add if we had it. We don't have it right now, but absolutely. Because as we were saying earlier, lime helps to sweeten the soil, so to speak. Make it alkaline, keep it alkaline. Lime also helps to hold down the smell. And again, it should not smell at the end. It's gonna be a little smell. Every time you turn it, you're opening up the gases. And you're allowing the gases to release. So there's gonna be a little bit of a smell, but lime will help to bring that to a balance right away. So your neighbors don't have to be scared. We're trying to invite people back to nature, so we're not attempting to run them off. So we can compost intentionally, responsibly, study. Don't just copycat what you see us do. Research. Oh no, it's gonna set. Yeah, you don't want to put it in the fire. You want it to have it open air. This is it. It's definitely gonna set. It's definitely running, but just attempting as much as possible to cover up all the green that you see. Because like we said before, these leaves already contain the formula. They already have a almost perfect ratio in terms of what is widely accepted as a good ratio of carbon to nitrogen. It takes longer to break down. So adding the vegetables just adds more punch to it. So these are the two. As we wrap up, after these are turned for a few weeks, and they start to break down, we move it over here. We start a new pile. And we keep turning this as well. Let them break down more. Eventually, this is going to be the end. This is a little bit smaller than that, not because we don't want a lot of compost at the end, but as we said, it breaks down, and the shrinkage from this, if this was just left alone and left the compost, the complete product, it is going to be like down to here with it, right? 1/3, 1/4, depending on a few factors. So much love to y'all. We're just going to finish our carpentry now. We're going to sign off from Columbus, Georgia.